we have collected 30 of the best brain-burning games known to man. These are the top 30, and what better way to make us feel better about our dumb little idiot brains than to force all of these games to battle to the death, where only one can come out on top. Let's face it, you only had room in that small little noggin of yours for one of them, and you can skip to the end of the video and find out which one in this room and board brain-burning complexities deathmatch. Honestly, I'm getting overwhelmed. I might need to take a break throughout this video. Who knows? But I do know that these are the competitors floating by my head. Every single one of these games was submitted by a Room and Board patron, and we have been voting all throughout the month of September, and it is time to reveal the results on which one of these games is going to come out on top. It is the best way to consume your top 30 lists, because this one involves bloodshed, tears, devastation, and burning. This Wednesday. I hope that this comes out on a Wednesday. So I had my patrons submit ideas, and these are what they came up with. They excluded a bunch of games, specifically Voidfall. They said, newsflash, Voidfall is known as a baby game for babies, and it's only the easiest game, and nobody except a tiny small child who's just emerged from the womb should ever play with Voidfall. That's what they said. Those are my patrons' words, not mine. I thought maybe it might be a little bit more complex, but I guess it wasn't complex enough to make it into this deathmatch. Also, it won a previous one. But we do have this great list of games, and I want you to make your guesses down below right now. I know you're just sitting there. You got time. You can make a decision. You can take a stand for once in your miserable existences. Take a stand now and vote. Vote on which game you think will come out on top so that I can laugh at you uproariously at the end of this video of all your pathetic little guesses when no, it was the other one that you almost picked but you didn't. We're coming out hot in this Room and Board deathmatch. We are going to make sure nobody has a good time, just like anything that I do in the late hours of the evening. Now, before we begin, if you're looking for games that are not here, well, we did do another crunchiest Euro deathmatch like 2 years ago, and so I did my best to pick games that weren't in that section as well. So there were a lot of different games in that competition. If you want 30 or 31 more great games to just burn your brain, melt it off, well, you can check that out after this video or before. Do whichever you like, but that might be where your favorite games are. Or drop in the comments down below which games you think were excluded as well. So I hope you've made your guesses, I hope you've made your picks, and let's get this thing started. As always, the first round, I'll try to break down a little snippet of what the game is all about. Of course, I won't be able to explain all of the mechanics, especially with these, because I don't know them. And also, we have a time. I'm going to get played out by the Oscar music if I go over time. I'm sorry. I'm going. I'm sorry. Sorry. Don't worry about the people over there. They're lovely people. Okay. Let's get started with Tanares Adventures versus Ezra and Nehemiah. Tanares Adventures, Arena of the Contest Tanares Adventures. Arena of the Contest used to be this sort of weird system where it divided its game into two different parts, and then they fixed that by making a big box edition of Tanares Adventures, which is just a large campaign game, which I own and still have yet to play. But I own it, so at least there's that. I think it does look cool. Out of all the sort of large, skirmishy, well-known campaign games, this one is one that I am the most interested in. I like that you are playing 4 different characters at the same time, and you have an option of 8 different characters, and they're essentially 8 different classes as you go through these different scenarios and use your abilities. And you can sort of, if I remember correctly, you can cheese the monsters effectively. It's all about really taking advantage of any of the monsters' AI that you can as you go through these skirmishes and go through the scenario-based setups. Ezra and Nehemiah is another game from Garphill Games, which means lots of colorful pieces and lots of combos. You're going to play as people rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and also by teaching the Torah to returning exiles. in sort of standard Garp Hill fashion, and there's surprisingly a lot of Garp Hill games on this list, and I think that has to do with the amount of moving parts that each of these games contains. I found that with Scholars of the South Tigris too, which didn't make it on the list, but a few of the other ones did. And the amount of things you have to keep in your brain of how does this combo, how does this little minigame interact with that? How do you use your hand of cards? How do you use your workers effectively? Where do you assign things? Everything just giving you possible points and materials to combo. But the crux of it being that you're going to be completing these sections of wall around the outside and rebuilding the temple, right? That was the whole thing of Ezra and Nehemiah. They're like, you're finally going to rebuild the temple after like 400 years of exile. Everyone was finally allowed to come back from Egypt and rebuild Jerusalem, and Ezra and Nehemiah got it done. I think Nehemiah was the slave of a Babylonian, but he was like a really well-respected slave, and so he's like, yeah, you can go rebuild it. And then Ezra was just like a prophet. Something like that. But you know what Ezra and Nehemiah couldn't have predicted? That they would lose in the first round. It's Arena of the Contest, Daenerys Adventures, that moves forward in a very close 14-13 vote. I think the vote kind of came down to a lot of campaign game, Garp Hill game, even if you hadn't played either of them. But people opted for the dungeon crawling with the deeply strategic combat, according to BGG, and it's Arena of the Contest that moves forward. Next up, we have Nucleum taking on Harrow County. Nucleum is a game by two incredible designers, Simone Luciani and David Turksey. I just did a top designers in their games list over on Rahdo's channel, and I put Simone Luciani as one of my picks for favorite designers. I think anything that Simone Luciani touches, I get personally interested in, which makes it completely inconvenient when he's purchasing groceries, because I am right there, right behind him, grabbing anything he touches and putting it in my cart. I have had to purchase many bottles of expensive scotch just because he likes the feeling of the labels. I don't even think he was going to buy them, but anything he touches, I'm interested in. I said it and I stand by it. And Nucleum is one of those games where if you haven't played it, you don't know anything about it. But people were talking about how Nucleum is so crunchy and good that it's like a better Brass. Some people are attributing it to that. You have to develop your networks on the board, powering up urban sectors, getting contracts so you can complete different objectives. All the standard, beautiful Euro stuff that I think you know if you'd like this game just by looking at the iconography, you know? That person is very focused. And that's the focus that you need to even start to consider this game. Although it's only 4.14 on the weight scale, that's actually not too bad. I take it all back. Harrow County is 3.74, so a little bit less, although it was 3.81 when I started this. Nucleum's gone up in complexity, and Harrow County has gone down in complexity just slightly whenever we were voting versus now. But Harrow County is a sort of tri-asymmetric game where there's one side and another side, and then if you have a third player, they can play this weird third faction. This is by the same company that made Mind Management, although this is significantly larger in that complexity. You want to move your haints around the board, your undead mason jars, roaming around the board trying to achieve objectives. Or you can play as Hester, who hides under the tree and doesn't really have people on the board, but uses the roots of the tree to sort of screw things up, as far as I understand it. And then Hester can control your people, and so it's this sort of three-way battle for area control in Harrow County. People were arguing that Harrow County might be more complicated strategy-wise just because of the asymmetry and the back and forth, and the instructions really sort of onboard you for like 3 or 4 games before you can get to the full game because of the amount of stuff that's in it. But it is the strength of all of Nucleum's bits and bobs and pieces that takes out the asymmetry. It was a pretty close round, but it is Nucleum that moves forward in a 15-10 vote. Next up, we have Food Chain Magnate. That's the one. Taking on Autobahn. Food Chain Magnate, which I own and I think is a great game, has to deal with this big old tech tree. This is the game right here. The board doesn't matter. The cards, that's what matters. Oh, that's a lot of Food Chain Magnate in the background. Seems like someone might be a fan. You're going to have this sort of very basic neighborhood. There's a bunch of houses that are all out there, and you have your own restaurants. Your restaurants are located specifically on the board. You can get restaurants, new restaurants later on, new sort of outposts. But where your restaurant is matters, because people are lazy and they'll go across the street to the restaurant unless they're supremely incentivized to drive to a place further down the road. And how you can incentivize these people is by cutting your prices down. And so there's a little bit of a way to work out how to determine the flow, the back and forth of who goes where. But in addition, people are also so stupid that if they see some advertising, they'll immediately want it and need it, and they won't go to your store if you can't satisfy their every need. They want lemonade, soda, pizza, and a burger for dinner. Well, if you only sell 3 of those, it doesn't matter. They ain't going to you. They're going down the street, around the corner to somebody who's charging them double because they can't satisfy that sweet little pizza craving without it. And so the whole sort of premise of the strategy of this part of the game is expanding your capabilities of what you can produce, expanding how you can fluctuate the price, and also expanding the marketing and how the marketing works on the unsuspecting villagers of the town, just hungry for something, and they don't know what until you tell them. But the main part of the game really has to do with the tech trees of cards in terms of how they level up, and specifically there are these milestones where if you are the first person to do something, you get a huge power for the rest of the game, which makes it complicated for new players playing against experienced players, because the experienced players know, oh, that's a good thing, and the new players are like, I don't know, I'll try something out. And once you've tried something out for the first 3 turns, the new player has the experienced player has already locked down the things that will give them the edge for the rest of the game, and you've essentially lost. That's Food Chain Magnate in a nutshell. But if you express that and you emphasize the power of these milestones, then people can focus on those in the early stages of the game, and then experiment with their really cool powers as they move forward. It's a great game, a really good economic game. There was a reprint that Lucky Duck did recently, which I thought looked fine. They were trying to give you mountains of plastic, which were stupid and unnecessary. And I think if you can get this base version, you'd be completely fine. And that's Food Chain Magnate in a nutshell. Autobahn is one that I remember looking at Kickstarter. This is also an economic strategy game about building the German motorway system. Everything you do is going to give you new access to different departments. Here you can put people up into the council chamber to pass laws or whatever, I'm pretty sure. You'll be locking down sections of the board and then building out from those sections, creating the most slices of highway that you can to score the most points. And if you wonder which one I've played or which one is moving forward, well, it's the same one. Autobahn, more like Autogone. It's not my joke. It's Food Chain Magnate that moves forward in a 17-7 vote. Although Autobahn I think looks cool. If I would be happy to play this as like a route building game, but in terms of economics and developing your economy, I think the tech trees of Food Chain Magnate just seem a little bit more fun to me. Next up, we have 3 Kingdoms Redux taking on Alchemists, both having maintained the same weight and complexity because, well, nobody's going back and raiding 3 Kingdoms Redux now, are they? Probably not. Look, there they are. There's the 3 Kingdoms. Three Kingdoms essentially combines worker placement with area control. You'll start in 3 different asymmetric portions. 2 of the kingdoms start allied together. It represents what the kingdoms were back in the day. However, the worker placement doesn't guarantee that you get to do that thing. Vault Boy was saying it. People were saying, oh, worker placement and area control, that's like Dwellings of Eldervale. He says, it doesn't play anything like Dwellings of Eldervale. There's some mechanism overlap. The implementation is completely different, though. I don't know of any game that it's even comparable to. I've never seen a similar worker placement mechanism. The asymmetry at the start is something that is usually in war games, but the combat regions are heavily abstracted. It's just this weird, unique gem of a game. It's really, out of the games that I didn't know going into this, it feels pretty intriguing to me, especially because of that asymmetry. It only works with the 3 players, right? And when you have those 3 players working in tandem and then fighting over the different regions that are kind of abstracted that you don't know if you're going to activate or not, I think that's pretty cool. But I think it'll take a lot to beat Alchemists. Alchemist, I think, is still pretty well loved. Yeah, it's still 159 on BGG. I feel that's a bit high for it. But essentially, Alchemist is also a worker placement game, but it involves deduction. You are going to go around this little map. See how there's all these little squares? Those squares represent worker placement spots. You can plop those workers down. They'll all do various things, and they'll activate in that order, and they will all contribute to solving this mysterious puzzle. All of these ingredients do something, and all of these ingredients work together on this little triangle to create either positive potions or negative potions. They all have different molecular structure, and that is the thing that creates a positive effect or a negative effect. And so it's up to you to figure out the molecular structure of these 8 ingredients. You do this through trial and error. Yeah, let's see if we can zoom out on this photo. You can see the breakdown of the molecular structure. Over here, they'll have sort of positive properties and negative properties. And so to create a positive red potion, you need the one that has the large red section and the small red section. That will create a positive red potion. And you can see as they've gone through, they've crossed out, okay, this green one definitely isn't that, and isn't that, and isn't that. And so you have this little kind of Sudoku-esque puzzle. I wouldn't really call it Sudoku. I would call it more that, I forget this every time I bring it up, but there's sort of a cross matrix of deduction. And that is what this is. You have everything sort of interacting with everything else, and you can see what things it produces, and then you know for your own papers and publishing what's going on. And you want to be the first person to publish and lock in your guesses about all of the different components. It's pretty brain-burny. It seems like both of these are pretty brain-burny. I think Alchemist is going to move forward based upon its familiarity, but I think Three Kingdoms feels like there's a lot to manage there. Ultimately, though, it is Alchemist that moves forward in a 14-7 vote. Next up, we have Bitoku from Devere taking on Cloudspire by Chip Theory Games. Cloudspire, which is finishing up its last expansion ever. Hey, look, it's right above. The ad's right above here. Cloudspire on Harbinger. Cloudspire Harbinger. There you go. Congratulations, BGG. You just earned yourself a click that you didn't have to. Sorry, I was distracted by Artie biting a chicken wing right out of Renee's mouth. There's a click that you didn't have to click on. I don't know what I was saying. I was saying something about Board Game Geek ads and how every click just sucks it dry and it costs so much money. But we're going to talk about Bitoku first. If you want a hand management, color vomit explosion engine building game with multiple paths to victory, this is it. On the boards, you will both have spots in which you can place your worker yokai and your card yokai to take additional actions. At least according to this, cards that make up their hand, which must be placed in the right places at the right times. Tons of points as you attempt to become spirits of the forest and move towards the path of transcendence.
Games, we don't care, we just see the game.
Renee is watching the Eagles right now, and it's very helpful to filming. It's taking on Cloudspire. Cloudspire, which has billed itself as like the MOBA style game, which is a multiplayer online battle arena, but it's also sort of influenced by tower defense as well. Oh, toilet paper cardboard spires. That's awesome. Look at this. So you can purchase these like big old plastic towers because you stack your things in a big old stack and move these spires around the board. That's how you use a lot of your units in the game to fight off either your opponent or whatever scenario you are facing. But this is a great idea. Look how nicely these are painted as these like towers, and they're just like little toilet paper rolls. That's so smart. Oh. See, you don't even need premium health chips. You can just use toilet paper themselves. I mean, those are pretty cool. These are the actual ones, but I like the toilet paper ones. Who would have thought I could get so excited over toilet paper rolls? Me. I thought that. And so I kind of expected Cloudspire to win this in a landslide, but Bitoku has a lot of friends in the neighborhood, a lot of spirits going for it. Cloudspire is ranked 355 on Board Game Geek right now. Bitoku is ranked higher than that at 293, a pretty comparable battle, but it is Cloudspire that does move forward in a 17-12 vote. Moving along, we have Imperium, Imperium Classics, or Imperium Horizon, or Imperium, whichever Imperium you choose, taking on Wayfarers of the South Tigris, the second SHAM Phillips game in the competition. Oh, that's a nice big box. These are all the civilizations that you can play as, but you're going to essentially take one civilization and build your decks. There's a ton of technologies, tactics, territories, and other advancements that don't start with a T in the card market, but you have to time that out because some are only beneficial when your civilization is in its infancy and some are only beneficial at the end. It's also going to be re-implemented, I think, in a Star Trek theme called Captain's Chair that's coming out soon, or maybe it's already out. They also, my patrons who have played it also said that they really enjoyed the solo mode, which makes sense since this was co-designed by David Turksey, Nigel Buckle being the other designer. And each different civilization has a different Automa deck, so reacts in a different way. So if you're a solo player who likes deck building, this might be one to check out. It's taking on Wayfarers of the South Tigris, again, another combo-centric game where you are moving your caravan across the South Tigris, laying out your cards in a specific pattern to trigger different events as you progress and move your caravan further and further along. And the game ends when somebody hits the end of the trek, and then you kind of score all your points that you have achieved along the way. So you want to find that balance between getting points by sending word back, by charting the sky, and also pushing forward to that end goal area. But it doesn't stand against the might of Imperium and potentially Imperium solo mode. It is Imperium as a genre that moves forward and takes out Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Garfield games, you're not brain burning enough. You need to add in more combos next time. Next up, we have AquaSphere versus Tzolk'in. And I'd never heard of AquaSphere before, but that's what I like about these death matches. I like hearing my patrons who are much smarter than a dumb idiot baby like me. Oh wait, a dumb idiot baby? Does that mean I love Voidfall? Who knows? Let's not unpack that just yet. But somebody put forward AquaSphere, and I think it looks really cool. But it is by Castles of Burgundy designer Stefan Feld, or Stefan Feld, probably. You'll want to program your bots to go to each station in order to take actions, keeping some stuff in reserve to pass certain points on the scoreboard. I kind of feel like just looking at the board and the assigning your people, this might be a really nice contender for Tzolk'in just from the circles. It's just the circles. It's the circles that's making me think here. It's not going to beat Tzolk'in. Tzolk'in, which has a lower weight, I feel. Oh, just by 0.01, Tzolk'in is rated lower in complexity, but it is going to move forward. Tzolk'in is a fantastic game. I love this concept of the wheels moving forward. This was like pivotal in blowing my mind open at one point when I first was introduced to it, way back when it came out. And Tzolk'in, I think, could be a real masterpiece if people didn't just abuse the second action on this wheel down here, the goods for corn action. It feels like that strategy is generally considered to be a little bit stronger. And when I learned about it through playing on Board Game Arena, I started getting too good to play against people in real life. And that kind of took the enthusiasm for the game out a little bit for me. I still want to delve into it, and I kind of purposefully don't use that space or use that strategy because then all the games kind of feel the same in that same rush. But there's something very exciting about waiting on the gear and trying to find that exact opportune time to pull your workers back or not. And so the more people there are, well, with 2 players, there are dummy spaces on the gears, but when there's all that competition for people, it's a pretty fun game to navigate and to play, and it knocks AquaSphere out of the water. Sorry, Stefan Feld, you're also a baby game for babies, and it's Tzolk'in that moves forward. Moving over to the other side of the bracket, we have On Mars taking on Kanban EV. I think I put these two against each other, or maybe I didn't. Usually I randomize the brackets. I kind of forget now. It feels like I might have put these against each other because it's Lacerda on Lacerda. I think Vital Lacerda should be very at home in this bracket. Vital Lacerda deals with complex mechanisms, lots of interweaving parts, and chunky games, and these two are no different. On Mars having two sort of sections, the things that happen on Mars and the things that happen on your own space station. You're trying to chain resources together and production elements together so you can produce more and more and contribute more to the terraforming and creation of Mars. Kanban EV, you are working in an electronic car shop where Sandra, the foreman, is always looking at you, making sure that you're doing your job. You're trying to manage suppliers and supplies, and really just try to impress Sandra with, look at her, she's so imposing. Come on, just do something impressive on the floor. Add a new doohickey to the steering wheel and hope that Sandra approves. And trying to push things through the assembly line to grab the most points. This is a re-implementation from Kanban, and it also has a lighter version called Bot Factory, which takes some of the same mechanisms, but makes it a little bit simpler. I think Lacerda is probably going to win this match, and I think Lacerda is going to lose. That's what I can predict on this one. Kanban sitting at 45 on BGG. On Mars at what, 62? 51, both in that top 100 handily. Oh, the comment of On Mars was that it was so friggin' cool that the mechanism is making you simultaneously hope your neighbors do well enough to build stuff so you can benefit from them, but not so well that they score more points from you, having that interaction level as well. And I expected On Mars to take it, but I know there's a lot of Kanban fans in the Discord. It was very close. It really kind of came down to one vote in the difference. And then, well, especially looking back now, the votes have changed and have gotten closer for On Mars. When it was called, though, the dice of chaos rolled. People who couldn't decide on what votes they wanted to do managed to throw down a little dice of chaos, and Kanban scooped them all up. It's Kanban that moves forward in a 17-10 vote. Moving along, we have the third Shem Phillips game. Maybe can it withstand? Can it move its way into the finals or into the next round at least? Is that a spoiler? Who knows? Taking on Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. Paladins of the West Kingdom is sort of reminiscent a little of Orléans in that you're going to have your own player board where you're placing workers down to do certain actions, essentially. But you also have to balance on its main board where you're plopping out these structures. Specific, that's a term in the rulebook. It says, plop out as many structures as you can, you plopping little paladin. Renee got so excited about the Paladins plopping those out, and rightfully so. Rurik Dawn of Kiev deals with something called auction programming, where some people were saying that you will definitely need some analysis paralysis as you work out how these auctions come to pass. You have to really be able to see the future as you openly bid for the ability to do these actions. And so you can see what everybody wants to do, if they're going to muster, if they're going to move, and what they have committed and how strongly they've committed to it. And so then as the game goes on, you can say, okay, well, now I know that you've wasted your strong committing thing or your quick one, so I'm going to go here quickly and foil all of your plans. That's where the main complexity of Rurik Dawn of Kiev comes from. But again, it's sort of the chaining of everything together as you get additional civilians to get you additional resources, to get you different people that you can then slot into different spots to produce more things, points onto the board. And it is Paladins that takes the popular vote and moves forward in a pretty dominant 23-10. We're moving on to Madeira, not Madeira, sorry to you Madeira fans out there, versus Zhanguo. Both of these games, again, I haven't played, but they seem great. And so naturally, they're all going to be burnt in a fire of doom. No one's going to like either of these games. They're going to replace it with something else. They say, nope, it's out of there. We want something different. But I'm going to still tell you about them so that you can know that this is what you let go. This is the thing that you let slip from your fingers. This is the glorious glory of Madeira. That funky coal Madeira that you let slip from your grasp. Madeira was sort of a laboratory, it's described, for the Portuguese Empire, where they were like, hey, what do people want? They want sugar? Great. Madeira, please produce a lot of sugar. Do you want wheat? Okay, Madeira, stop your sugar and produce wheat. And so throughout the game, that's the crux of what's going to be happening. There's going to be demand for certain things, and you know that those things are going to wane, and it's up to you to choose how much time to invest in producing the wheat before pivoting to sugar, before pivoting to that inevitable progression of time that I am desperate to avoid. So balancing those requests and managing that agriculture, I don't know, that seems pretty fun to me. It's up against Zhanguo, where you're the Empire's emissaries. You've been assigned the challenging task of contributing to the process of unifying the Empire, helping to build the wall and all infrastructures needed. During the 5 rounds of the game, you must make the best of the few cards you get each round. You can play each card either on your own player board to increase your own personal power in the Empire, touchdown for the Eagles, or you can play the cards onto the game board to recruit manpower and construct buildings. And so trying to balance your own personal power versus what you contribute to the Empire is sort of the crux of this game as well. But unfortunately, the funky cold Madeira and its lesser-known song, the zany lukewarm Zhanguo, are hated by the nation, and both of them are burnt for all eternity. What will take their place? Well, we're going to have to wait and find out. We're going to move along, though, to Coimbra taking on Dungeon Petz. Again, Coimbra sitting at 239, Dungeon Petz sitting at 328, again in that sort of Cloudspire Bitoku range. We're moving to Portugal again, though, with Coimbra. Coimbra has a dice drafting focus, where the dice you draft will determine what you can do on your turn. You have to balance satisfying the citizens and deepening relationships with monasteries. I do love Peter's breakdown, though, of it. Peter, who likes in my Discord, hey Peter, who says, Coimbra is a neat dice drafting auction mechanic where the higher dice you draft is a higher bid. The dice are bid for first pick at the rows of cards. The card you collect determines if you're paying with money or reputation, the coins or the shields. And hopefully you have enough to pay for what you want. The cards then move you on these tracks, which give you actions and abilities and might give you scoring bonus. It's like a multi-use card where you get to use all the options on the card. But you see every single card in the game at some point in time as well. It's kind of like Lorenzo Il Magnifico. You see that as well. It's taking on Dungeon Petz, which Peter also likes and says, Dungeon Petz has a great bidding phase as you are the leader of an imp family that's just started a new business. Dungeon Petz also has a bidding phase to get first pick at things, but it costs workers and money to pick worker placement spots. You have to get pets, take care of them, show them off, sell them for profit and points. The brain-burning part is anticipating the needs of the pets and minimizing their anger, sadness, magic mutations, etc. People often get tied up in their AP for the pet care phase because it's easy to get attached to these adorable critters. The art is amazing, the rulebook's hilarious, easily my favorite game for years. And it also says, as good and as thinky as Coimbra is, it doesn't compare to the majesty of Dungeon Petz and the cuteness of keeping all of your dungeon pets under control. Happy, fed, satisfied until you sell them for a profit. I don't want to sell them, I want to keep them. And so perhaps with that rousing and passionate comparison, it is Dungeon Petz that moves forward in a 17-6 votes. We're moving on to Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. This is Lacerda's additional entry into this competition, taking on Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done by designer Seth Jaffe, who also did Eminent Domain, and I know this because Alex from Might I Suggest a Game, he's big over on TikTok, was also on the R&R shout-out show, and he said Seth Jaffe was one of his favorite designers. So I thought that was kind of cool. But will he compare against Vital Lacerda? I guess we're going to find out. Inventions is sort of the newer game from Vital Lacerda, and it deals with establishing these different inventions and kind of deals with this dual worker placement track. If I'm remembering correctly, and maybe I'm not, in fact, every rule I've told you so far has been wrong and you never noticed. You can only choose one side or the other of these actions. And so it's also important to see what you want to do is tied into what you're giving up and giving away. In its essence, it is a civilization game as you're trying to build up these things of your own civilization and create these cards, these catapults, these steamboats, these microscopes, and create inventions so that the world can move forward instead of backwards, as many people still want it to do. And even with some vocal people who say that evolution is the devil's lie, and that invention sucks, Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done didn't quite do enough to stand up against the behemoth of the Lacerda name, I feel. Crusaders has a mandala and rondel mechanic where you're going to pick up some of these things and move them one at a time, bloop, 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 and where you land, you get to take that action and sort of the efficacy of that action as you move your Templar all around the board, establishing outposts until the king gets too nervous and calls the whole thing off. And then that's the end of the game. A very, very funny theme, but it unfortunately is unable to stand up against Lacerda as Inventions moves forward in a 17-12 vote. Moving along to Agra taking on Arborea. I thought Arborea was sort of more well-loved and shooting up the charts than this at 1810. Actually, Agra is significantly better on BGG's tracks. Agra, as you know, in 1572, it marked the 30th birthday of Abul Fath Jalal-ud-Din Muhammad. So, colloquially known as Akbar the Great. I knew that. Did you know that? I knew that. But because of all these celebrations, it's your time as a merchant to get wealthy. get wealthy, make birthday, as they say. Is that the expression? It is now. Unfortunately, Agra didn't get a lot of love in this deathmatch. The whole premise is just this trading aspect, is how are you going to convert things into other things that you can get points and renown before Admiral Akbar's birthday, right? It's all about trading those resources together and comboing them so that you can come out on top. It's facing Arborea, though, who also has a beautiful colored board and has that same delayed gratification as Tzolk'in, as you'll put your workers on these four tracks. I thought it was six. But it's four, which gets shifted. Everybody gets shifted conveyor belt style forward the longer they stay on them, and then they can run out and collect stuff and do different things. You want to contribute to the shared resource track down here as well, and make offerings to the sages so that you can have the most points at the end of the game. And it is Arborea that just blows Agra out of the water, maybe because of the coloring, maybe because of that delayed gratification, maybe because of those cute little meeples. Who knows? But it's Arborea that moves forward in an 18-3 vote. And finally, closing us up on the last tail end of the bracket, then we can really get cooking here, as we all have just a very, very rough sketch of what all these games do. We have Forbidden Stars taking on one of the most complex games out there, Bounce Off. Now, here's the thing. So many games, Forbidden Stars, who cares? Re-implemented StarCraft, whatever. It was already an existing board game. How much more complicated can you make it? Not very. But when you have something like Bounce Off, I was checking. I was seeing how many 10s are there. There are 13 people who I like in this world. And one of them is me, okay? Justin Board Games 50 knows what's up. Sailment knows what's up. Corinthian knows what's up. The rest of you... where have you been? Where's the 10 ratings for this one? And if I can sort of call you to action, think about the complexity of gravity. Think about, I don't know, a theoretical physicist? Is that slightly brain-burning enough for you? You know what's brain-burning? Trying to calculate the precise angle of not one, but two bounces. Bouncing once and bouncing in. Trying to find the delicate angle. Calculating the perfect trajectory. Is there wind interference? I don't know. Try to do all that math in your head. Go on. Go ahead. I'll wait. If I'm throwing my little bounce-off ball, which weighs anywhere from 0.7 grams to 34 grams, I think that's the range. And if I'm throwing it at a velocity of 50 miles an hour, as is my normal bounce-off throw, at an angle of 47 degrees in a curving arc natural to my arm's extension. I'm 6 foot. My forearm is, 13 inches and 3/4. And I'm throwing it, releasing it at a perfect trajectory. Where's it going to bounce into? Oh, the wood table, it's made of oak. Okay? It's made of clay, a clay surface on an oak table. So where's the bouncing going to land? Where should I perfectly position the board so that it lands in the exact spot on the grid that I needed to create a perfect polyomino pattern? That would be a good theme for a game, for a deathmatch. Polyominoes. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Go ahead. Do all that math in your head. You can't. You're not a computer. Well, actually, you are, in fact, a computer. I'm speaking directly to a computer, through a computer, but you know what I mean. But unfortunately, because hackers have gotten into the Board Game Geek system, and the cutoff for this deathmatch, we had to make a strict cutoff, so I made it at 1.37 weight and complexity. Unfortunately, hackers have tanked Bounce Off's rating, kind of like they've tanked its average rating. Because of this, I have to remove Bounce Off from the competition. Let me tell you, I'm as disappointed as you are. Some might say I'm even more disappointed. And I have to call an audible. I have to deal with all these punks who've been rigging the system. And what better way to deal with them than by putting them on ice? We've got Frostpunk taking on Forbidden Star. Just monumentally disappointing here. Regardless of the cheers in the background, just monumentally disappointing. Forbidden Stars re-implement StarCraft, and StarCraft is a more fun theme for me to talk about. But you have 3 factions, essentially. 3 factions that are going to be running around on the board. The Terran, the Protoss, and the Zerg. And Forbidden Stars, it's something 40k, who cares? The Space Marines, the Elder of Craftworld Lyadin, and the Evil Sun's Orc Clan, or the World Eaters Warband of the Chaos Space Marines. Okay, make up some more names, why don't you? My fake fired up got me fired up. Each of them has a different asymmetric ability, but you have these objective tokens for your own clan scattered across the galaxy, and you have to run to them and do certain things based upon your own specific clan's ability. This is one that I think Zach played at Niagara Board Game Convention, and he found it excruciating because of how much analysis paralysis was around the table, but saw that it could be fun later on. It's taking on Frostpunk, the board game, which is the implementation of the video game, where if you paid for a bajillion dollars, you could get this giant structure to plop in the middle of your table. That's the punk that everyone's talking about. You'll go through these different scenarios and you'll try not to die. Are you going to use your people as a resource and sacrifice them to the snow, or are you going to save their lives? This is one where you need a huge table, and even then it may not fit. People were talking about how long this game takes to play, and then emphasized that most of that time is spent thinking about what you need to do, and if that doesn't fit for the theme, I don't know what does. Compared to this endless winter, I think Frostpunk has the true endless winter, and it is Frostpunk that is going to move forward in a 17-13 vote. So we've made it. We've made it through the round of 16, or up to the round of 16. Now we're really going to get cooking here. We're back to the beginning. We have Arena versus Septima. We only have 2 more additions to talk about, Septima being one of them. Luckily, I've played Septima, so I don't have to look it up and struggle through. Septima, you're going to be moving your witches in the forest to collect different resources, and you're going to be using those resources to kind of create potions to cure the ailments of the town. However, the town is superstitious, and you are a witch, and they hate witches, and there are these witch hunters that are running around trying to kill you. They are going to steal members of your coven and put them on trial, and so all the while you need to be curing people and winning their favors so that you don't get burned at the stake. In addition, if you choose the same action, your actions are sort of card driven, if you choose the same action as another witch, you get to do a stronger version of that action. Or if you match it up with the Great Grand Witch as well, that way there's always something that you can match that you're guaranteed to choose the stronger version. But if you do that, then people will start whispering about you. They're going to gossip that you weigh the same as a duck, or less than a duck, or more than a duck. I forget the specifics. Less than a duck, because you have to be able to float on water, and ducks float, because wood floats, because wood burns. You have room in your coven for 4 witches. You'll start out with 2 different witches. They all can do different abilities. Try not to get completely burnt alive. Essentially, collecting stuff, getting the most points to win the game. It's facing off against Arena, the Tanares Adventures. And I think there are a lot of Mind Clash games. The last time we did this, a lot of the games in the previous Deathmatch in way back when were Mind Clash titles. And I think Mind Clash also has a very firm handle on this theme. That this complexity, they're known for their complex games with intense iconography. But I think having played a demo of Septima, and I really am excited for Septima. I do want to get a copy. I think it'll be pretty fun. Having played a demo of it, I find this the easiest of all Mind Clash titles. It is the least complex of any of the Mind Clash games that I've played, maybe along the same lines as Ironwood. Ironwood wasn't that complex either, but I think it is potentially that not living up to its namesake, or being a little bit easier in comparison to its sister publisher titles or whatever, that makes it lose this competition, and Arena, the contest, moves forward in a pretty dominant 17-12 vote. Moving along, we've got Nucleum taking on Food Chain Magnate. I think Nucleum takes it here. Nucleum should take it here. I don't think Food Chain Magnate is actually that complicated. I don't even think it takes a long time, especially if you are playing a shorter game, because the players can determine how long the game is. You essentially put in an amount of money that is in the bank, and when that runs dry, the game is over. And so you can choose to put in a lot of money or a little money, and that's part of the strategy of knowing if the game's going to go long or if the game's going to go short, and how to balance your economy as to when the end game is triggered. So it could run a little bit long. I just don't find Food Chain Magnate that complicated. I think once you get past the first 4 turns, you're like, okay, now I'm off rolling. It's just that initial hump of getting those benefits and awards from the milestones that really kind of define your game, but then it's just navigating this little tech tree of what do I upgrade into what and when, and make sure I have enough management people to oversee all the actions that I want to be doing on the turn. Food Chain Magnate is rated at a 4.2 in complexity, though, compared to Nucleum's like 4.11 or 4.14. It's gone up, remember. I would probably vote for Nucleum here if I was voting. And it seems like people agree with me. Nucleum does move forward in a 19 to 12 vote. Food Chain Magnate is burnt for all eternity. Next up, we have Alchemists taking on Cloudspire. 4.39. It's gone up since September, taking on 3.93. It's the same complexity since then. And while Alchemist is a fun game, it cannot stand against the weight of fandom of chip theory games. It is Cloudspire that just dominates the competition, just completely overthrows it. And like, Alchemist is one of those games where like, I really want to love it. You know, I want this to hit with me. I think it really is a great fit for this competition, this brain-burning aspect. I think I don't get it to the table that much. Well, I don't own a copy, but I've played friends' copies, but I don't request playing it when I'm over there because it does just have a really weird way of thinking and shifting around. It is definitely fun and a super great contender for if you really want to feel exhausted by the end of the game. But I also think Cloudspire, with its varied factions, the amount of things that are going on here, the amount of keywords that they've crammed in, there won't be time to do a 5 reasons you shouldn't back on Cloudspire Harbinger, but number one would be don't go all in if you've never played it. It's that sort of game where people love going all in on Kickstarters, right? People love buying everything that could ever exist for a game before they even know if they like it, for some strange reason that I will never know. It's like buying seasons tickets to the NFL if you've never seen a football game before. And in fact, you only kind of like sports, and only in the very specific circumstances of you remember that they exist and your team that you picked arbitrarily just happens to be playing that day. Not talking about anybody in specific. But yeah, nobody should go all in on Cloudspire, but the system seems fun. It's just such a rules overhead for all the different factions in terms of how they work and how they kind of work with each other that makes it a good candidate to move forward and to burn Alchemist from this competition. Next up, we have Imperium taking on Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar. Let's get their actual pictures up here so we can burn one of them to the ground. This one's pretty close. I think the thinking forward aspect of Tzolk'in and the gears is one that does or can burn your brain if you're not used to thinking ahead and picturing everything. It kind of reminds me of like the picturing everything of Rurik Dawn of Kiev. I feel like a lot of these games that have been put forward are like, hey, there is so much that's going to happen in 2 turns, and we can figure it all out, but are we going to? Imperium, though, I think moves forward. It moves forward on a 13 to 11 vote, probably because on the backs of its multiple civilizations. We have Imperium Classics, we have Imperium Legends, and we also have Imperium Horizons, which just came out in 2024. So giving you a whole bunch of different decks and different ways to deck build. I think that is what gets the nod over Tzolk'in and moves forward in a 13 to 11 vote. Now we're on the other side of the bracket. We have our last contender. Shout out to Anne, who I always think about when I think about Oath, who I got to see at WSVG, and who I need to email so I can get her book. Oath, which has the same sort of promise to me as Trudvang, which is that you have a history of an ancient land. You're going to be playing this game over the course of a number of different things, and as that game progresses, the chronicle will shift. The land will change. Things will have happened and have had ripple effects throughout the history of your game, and then when you play a new game, you will feel the effects of that history. I think that is such a cool concept of an ever-living and changing game board with different events in different states, etc. It's by Cole Worley, who's creator of Root, who is just such a fascinating person to talk to. And it's how does this country evolve? Did you seize the throne through anarchy and distrust? Then the land will be overrun with thieves and petty warlords. I do love this concept. And because that concept is so prevalent in its descriptions, I don't know anything about how to play. Like, I don't know anything about the actual game flow of the game. Whereas at least I know in Kanban, which it's facing off against, you're making cars. There's a conveyor belt, there's a factory line, you're going to spit something out at the other end, and you're going to try to get some points for it. And so maybe because of that, it is Kanban that moves forward in a 19-17 vote. Oath is close, but Oath has been burnt for all eternity. Now, up next, we have Paladins of the West Kingdom taking on the Burn replacement. And usually for these sorts of things, I'm getting to it. Usually for these sorts of things, I choose something from previous nominations, but we have a special guest here today, so I know this is wildly unorthodox, but because of this, and because I do have a special guest in the studio who's been just standing watching me this whole time, I do. Well, I'll just let him explain it. I actually have to take an important phone call right now, but this is the time when I'm filming, so I'm just gonna get him to sub in for me. For a little while. I'm sure I'll be back. I promise I'll be back. I hope I'll be back.
Hey everybody! Hey! I'll just twist my little head here. Twist my little head so I'm looking right at you. Hey, let's get back to full screen just so you can see me. Hi everybody! It's me, Mr. Ben Bearson, over here, and I'm so honored to be stepping in for Chris. But I just wanted to say hi, and I wanted to introduce you to the new owner of Room and Board. It's not me. I'm too busy. I've got many people to see. But there is somebody who is taking over Room and Board, and unfortunately, Chris said he hoped you would see him again. You never are going to see him again. So I'd like to bring in our new overlord and leader, Satan. Satan, come on in. Come on in, buddy. Why don't you get on over here and take the stage. Take the stage.
Oh, thank you. Please. Satan is my father. Call me the Prince of Darkness. Let's get this death match. Oh, boy, do I love a death match. We're going to get this death match underway. I have decreed by the Council of Community Keynote Speakers here at Room and Board. We're all about the community, right? We love the Council of Community Keynote Speakers. We love them. We just want to grab them all. We want to grab them all and just give them a big little hug and just pump them up. We're going to pump them right up there. Now, I wanted to declare that Paladins will not be facing off against anyone. In fact, Paladins is going to move right to the next round. Yeah, because I love it. I love it. Okay, so Paladins next. My job here is done. Paladins is done. It moves to the next round. What else do I need to? There's 30 more of these. There's more matches. This. I'm sorry. This is below my pay grade. Okay, I may be the new manager of Room and Board, but I'm not interested in putting in any work. I just want to relax. So I'll just have one of my underlings do it. I think that'll be fine. Who's on the list? Is Sasquatch? No, Sasquatch is on vacation. Do we have Saint Thicolis? Saint Thicolis in the house? No? All right, let me check my list. Oh, no, not him. Do we have anybody else other than him? We don't have any. Well, I'm not going to do it. So I want to bid y'all a hellish farewell, and let's bring in the replacement to do the rest of the rounds, I guess. Oh, God. I don't know how this is going to go, but hey, I don't care if this channel crashes and burns. I was just given to it. I was just given it from, strangely, a talking bear. That's wild. Okay. Paladins moves on to the next round. Come on in. I gotta go take a smoke or something.
Praise be to the void. Praise be to the darkness. Hey, everybody. Welcome to your everlasting darkness. You know, we gotta make this a little bit more fitting. That's a color suiting our glorious darkness and doom and destruction. Welcome. It's me. My name's James. You can call me the King of Darkness, the King of the Void. We're gonna take a look at this next one here. You'd think I would have a scarier voice, but for some reason, this is the voice that I chose. And this is the
really non-dynamic mask. So really nothing going well for this decision. Maybe I'll just flip my hair back and forth to emphasize things. That'll make for a more visually appealing video. Okay. Let me, I guess I should put something on, but more of a personality. Okay, to more fitting of the Void King of Darkness. Not just a regular substitute teacher, but I'm a scary one. Okay. Welcome to the Void. Next up, we have Dungeon Petz versus oh my god, for crying out loud. Evolutions, inventions, and evolution of ideas. You know what's an idea? Make a game that actually has a good theme. That's an idea, right? I'm telling you about that. Dungeon Petz is going to move forward here. I don't care. I don't care what anybody else has to say. I don't care about you. I don't care about the votes. Inventions is going to move forward 14-12. Well, I guess I do care about the votes because it was actually a pretty close vote there. But Dungeon Petz is just like, look, one of these games looks like it could be me. And the other game looks like beige. Who wants a beige game? Okay, you want these flowing rocks of hair. I really should have come up with a better voice for this. I feel pretty self-conscious about this choice, if I'm being honest with myself. Can it sustain the rest of the video? I do not know, but now I've committed to it, and all my other masks, faces, well, we're just going to keep on moving. We're going to move on. Goodbye, Evolutions. We got Dungeon Petz. Next up, we've got this one, which, I don't know anything about. It's colorful. It looks like a Miyazaki-inspired Euro, taking on something based off of a video game, but this one has plastic, so who's gonna survive this? Probably not my viewership. Even though people are talking about how cool this shared resource board is down in the bottom corner, you get points for putting resources there, and then you can use them later, but your opponents can use them later, so I really feel like this voice is not good enough for the Void King of Darkness. But that's just who I am, okay? Sometimes it's hard, okay? Let me level with you for a second. Sometimes it's hard being the Void King of Darkness. Sometimes you just want to have a little fun, okay? Sometimes you don't want to let your hair down because it takes hours to get this dew looking so delightful, okay? Sometimes you just want to be plain James, okay? Sometimes you don't want to live up to the expectation that people put upon you. Sometimes you're out here in the cold starving. And it feels like I'm out here in the cold right now. This is why people don't make biopics, okay? Because you can never get the character just the way it should be. Anyway, like, looking at these votes, people seem to like Arborea a little bit more, but those were the same people who voted for Inventions, so, I'm gonna give it to Frostpunk. Frostpunk's gonna be the one to move forward. Okay, let's keep it going. Next up, we got a big old campaign game, Arena, Tanares Adventures, taking on Nucleum. And you know what I'm going to do for this vote? Well, we've talked about these two games before. We don't really need to talk about them again. You know what we can talk about now? I need a little bit of a pep talk. So, down in the comments, tell me how great a job I'm doing compared to that piece of garbage, Chris, okay? Because this is not doing well. My confidence, I don't know if you've noticed throughout this video, it's a bit shaken, and so I could really, if you wanted to compliment my beautiful pale skin, my luscious locks, my sexy horns, you want to tell me what you would do with my horns, you want to tell me that you'd hang my head on your wall and look at it every night before you go to sleep. You want to tell me that you'd grab my hair in between your legs and spin it off. That's a quote from Twelfth Night, okay? It's Shakespeare, so it's allowed. It's not dirty, it's allowed. Honestly, you know what should beat both of these games? My favorite game of all time, Spicify. The complexities, the political and interpersonal complexities that happen whenever you're trying to play a game of that at a convention, let me tell you, it is not a good thing. So we got Tanares, we got Nucleum. We're gonna give it to Tanares because the Pegasus looks a little bit more like me, you know, than a nuclear explosion does. Well,
50-50. But I think the people who like Tanares would like me a little bit more, so we're going to give it to Tanares. Tanares is going to move forward. Next up, we have Cloudspire, which is the best chip theory game of all time, the best MOBA game of all time, the best currently in the bracket game of all time, taking on Imperium, which, meh, it's fine. You have a perfect masterpiece taking on something that's fine. Even if you dumb idiots didn't vote for Cloudspire, I was just going to make Cloudspire win anyway, so you didn't really have a choice, did you? You think you enjoy this democracy? Well, I got news for you. Democracy gave us a country that uses Fahrenheit and a country that uses Celsius, okay? Just do one. Democracy gave us daylight savings time that keeps going on. Democracy gave us voting. Who needs to vote? Just leave me in charge, and I get to decide. And that's why I decide that Cloudspire just beats Imperium and, moves on. Cloudspire wins. It doesn't matter. It was 14-4. Nah, it's 18-0. Cloudspire is the one. Next up, we've got Kanban taking on, Paladins. Paladins of the West Kingdom. Paladins, which is just a glorious game, because you know why? Look at this. Look at this guy. Look at his facial structure on this at the beginning. And you want me to look at Sandra, my ex-wife Sandra? Sandra's not even on the cover. Yeah, we gotta bow to Sandra's demands every single day. Oh, I want you to eat 3 meals a day, Void King. Oh, please, do your job correctly instead of being corrupt the whole time. I was put here by the King of Hell, okay? The Prince of Darkness. Sorry, Prince of Darkness. I'm the King of... Wait, am I the King of Darkness? Well, how am I the King of Darkness? But the Prince of Darkness put the King of Darkness here, but the King of Darkness reports to the Prince of... I'll just stick with being King of the Void, that's fine. And I see you all voting for Kanban over Paladins of the West Kingdom, and I say no, okay? I'm just gonna give us a couple moments to breathe here. And so I know that people in the voting are just probably pulling my chain here, because they know that Sandra keeps bossing me around. And look at her with her no face. I mean, that is why I did fall in love with her, to be clear. It was the beautiful presentation of her non-features that really got my spine all tingling. But I don't want to sit in a little car with Sandra for 17 hours while we go over to visit her parents in Maine. Okay, in Camden, Maine, which looks a lot like Dartmouth, all right? I don't want to go on a little road trip with Sandra and then find a tree in the middle of our path and then be stuck with Sandra for the rest of my life. I would rather be chewed up with monsters, and I need a paladin to come protect me and save me from Sandra. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this open for a second. We're going to move on to Dungeon Petz taking on Frostpunk, because I just need a little breather for you all to get your shit together and make sure that Paladins keeps moving forward to save my little life. Next up, we got Dungeon Petz taking on Frostpunk. I don't care. I don't care between the two. I'll let you two pick. I don't care either way. Frostpunk just seems to eat all of the Dungeon Pets here and takes them out in a 13-2 vote. Moving on to the semifinals. We're at the semifinals already. That's a lot. We've got Tanares, the Standard Adventurer. We got Cloudspire. We've got probably Paladins, although you haven't yet told me I can put that in there. And then we got Frostpunk. So let's look at Tanares first. Again, I know you're having a little laugh. I don't want Sandra. I just need Sandra to get off my friggin' back, okay? Sandra's like, oh, I'm gonna give you a hug every day. Just like, chill, Sandra, okay? Sandra's like, I'm gonna watch your performance. Oh, and do my actual job. I'm like, okay, Sandra, please, some of us are trying not to work here. Okay, Sandra's like, oh, you gotta, maybe you should stand up and take a stretch break every 30 minutes. I'm like, Sandra, please, let me get my bed sores in peace, okay? We got Tanares versus Cloudspire. We know Cloudspire's gonna win, right? I mean, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. The King of the Void, the Prince of the Darkness, we all know. We know that, Tanares is fine, but I don't even understand what Cloudspire is, and I've played 17 games of it. I just put the pieces on the board and I flip the coins like pogs and I splash them on the table and I rub my little skeleton face all over the neoprene so I can feel something for once in my life. And then I pack it up and call it a day and say, yeah, I spent money on that. It's money well spent. Tanares Adventures, the Pegasus looks cool, but I'm a bit jealous of the wings, so I'm going to kill that one. Cloudspire moves forward in 11 to 9 vote. All right, next up, we got Kanban EV, although I thought it was going to be Paladins, but it's Kanban EV, which is by SHAM Phillips. It's a worker placement game by SHAM Phillips, by taking on Frostpunk, the board game, based off the video game. It's Paladins of the EV, taking on Frostpunk, the board game. And you know, just because I cannot suffer another defeat. You know what? You aren't even worth knowing about Paladins. I'll tell you this. You want to know brain-burning complexity? I played one game of Paladins when I used to have skin. And now, look at me. That's what it did to me, people. This is what Paladins does to you. Okay? So keep that in mind when you're thinking about burning your little face off. But we're gonna do Frostpunk taking on Kanban EV. Oh, these games are so boring. Oh, they're so boring. Do you think they're even possible? Well, at least Frostpunk's gonna take out Sandra. So at least there's that. Even though it's a tie right now, but suck it. It's gonna be 12-11. 12-11 for Kanban EV. For Frostpunk. Frostpunk moves into the final, and here we have it. We move to the final, the most exciting and disappointing final in the history of the friggin' world. We got Cloudspire taking on Frostpunk. Two of these are brain burners. You know, if by brain burner you mean like just heat yourself up in the oven and call it a day. Okay, I gotta tell you, this is foolishness because there's one game here that I like, and because I like a game, it's going in the final. I don't care about you. I don't care about the people. I don't even care about Sandra, who didn't want me to put this in here. Well, this is to rebel against Sandra. We got Voidfall in the finals now. Yeah, Chris talked about it earlier at the beginning of the game. He said it was a baby game for babies. Well, you know where Chris is right now? He's being chopped up and fed to a bunch of baby demons, 1,000 of them, piece by piece. And we're keeping his brain intact so we can feel every single morsel as they digest him. He's connected completely. His entrails spewed all across the chasms, being slurped up like spaghetti. That's how we do it in here. That's how we, you know what, we're going to change that. Let's get a color. There, that's more purple. Purple behind. Now we're here. We're here at the void. We are here. And I guess I've got to keep the movement going. Now it's become part of my character. We've made it. It's going to be Cloudspire taking on Frostpunk, taking on Voidfall. But you know what, all you undecided voters out there? Well, you're voting for Voidfall. Who's voting for Voidfall? Let me read the list. We got Satan, the Prince of Darkness. We have me, Void King James. We have Saint Thickles. We have a lot of people who are voting for Voidfall. They love Voidfall. In fact, Chris got a copy of Voidfall just the other day. And you can pick from your 9 action cards. It's so complex a game that you have 9 options of what to do on your turn. Mind-blowing. Some games give you so many different ways to combo things like Paladins, but Voidfall gives you 9 decisions. And some of them, sometimes the cards will be like, you know what, you can't even play one of these cards. So then you have 8 decisions. It's so brain-burningly complex as you have a nice little economy. You have, everybody has a dial with 5 resources on them. 5! Can you think about what other game has 5 resources in it? No other game. It's insane. It's just wild. Everyone's minds are being blown out of their skulls. This is just exceptional. So I'm declaring it. Voidfall wins. Voidfall wins the deathmatch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I am Void King James. Thank you very much for being here with me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some complicated games of my own, my own solo mode that I need to take care of right now. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Good night. Good. No, wait. Okay,
That is not happening on my watch. Oh, give me 1 second. You get back here, Void King James. You. That is not how we do things in the room and board deathmatch. We honor democracy here. We are here for the votes. We are here for the people. We are here to stand up for what is right. And I don't care if I've had my entrails ripped out from under me and down below. I just look like a box of red spaghetti. I am going to call the end of this match. Let's get this off the screen. It comes down to Cloudspire and Frostpunk. A close 15-13 vote. The votes for Voidfall weren't even close. Even with this perversion of the votes, nobody went for Voidfall because they knew it was and will always be a baby game for babies. Frostpunk is the one that comes in second, and it is Cloudspire that comes in at a 15-13 vote. Congratulations goes out to Cloudspire and Chip Theory Games. You make games that people get too exhausted playing that they never want to play again. Oh, I am in so much pain. But I can guarantee you that will be the last we see of Void King James around this parts. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you want to participate in the deathmatch votes and want to know what the dang hell is going on, well, you can sign up for Patreon. You can go support the channel, sign up for Patreon down below. You can participate in the daily votes. Right now, we're doing the best Polyomino game. That is a current matchup and will be live next month. Or you can always just wait here for the recaps and see what the dang hell is gonna happen next. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Chris George, and I do not have a catchphrase, but I need to deal with some severe stitching happening below the frame. It is very good that you cannot see what's happening down there. Even worse than the normal atrocities that are happening down there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.